Welcome. Read A Course in Miracles along with us in our home style text class. For information about our live workbook classes, email us and check out our website for more course support, including retreats at the Little Garden in Sedona. Okay.
Good morning. What are we doing today, Jen?
We're doing the Cloud of Guilt from chapter 13 of A Course in Miracles. And it's section 9. It's on page 260 if you've got the most common edition.
Actually, in the early one.
Okay, so
What we thought we might want to do, the beginning of this chapter, the first paragraph. So this chapter is called The Guiltless World. And we're learning that we have to choose between guilt and innocence. And but this first paragraph in the first section of this chapter said, if you did not feel guilty, you could not attack, for condemnation is the root of attack. It is the judgment of one mind by another as unworthy of love and deserving of punishment. But herein lies the split, for the mind that judges perceives itself as separate from the mind being judged, believing that by punishing another, it will escape punishment. So that's the voice of the ego saying, I can free you from your guilt, just blame something else.
right. And that's really a good basis for what we're going to read today.
Yeah.
And another thing I'd like to just point out, remind us of, is chapter 13, section 3, the fear of redemption. Remember how there were the layers of the mind? You know, you've got all your ego guilt and then more existential guilt. And what we're really afraid of is the love that would show up if we got rid of the guilt.
Yeah. So see how that's reinforced, because we do sort of believe that if we look, we're going to see this darkness inside of ourselves. We really believe that. But he's just saying you're not present with the Holy Spirit.
So let's go. This is a good section. I got to tell you, it's describing the situation, but at the end, it's all, you know, angels and trumpets and choirs. So worth it. Worth looking at our guilt. Okay. Dale, could you start us off, please?
I thought you were going to do Elijah Rock or something.
Okay, the cloud of guilt. Guilt remains the only thing that hides the Father, for guilt is the attack upon his Son. The guilty always condemn, and having done so, they will still condemn, linking the future to the past as is the ego's law. Fidelity to this law lets no light in, for it demands fidelity to darkness and forbids awakening. The ego's laws are strict, and breaches are severely punished. The ego's laws are strict, and breaches are severely punished. I don't know what that means. I mean, when you stay in the ego, is that what we're saying, that then you continue to punish yourself?
That's one ramification of it for sure. But you could see it on all levels. You know, it's like person broke a law, they should be punished, you know, rather than the call for love should be answered. Let me see how I can do it. So that's one level. But the one that this section is gonna focus on, I think, is how we blame ourselves for our.
Well, wait a minute. Just let's look at sentence 2, because that's the breach.
Okay.
The ego is getting us to always see the past, see the future as a function of the past.
Okay, so read sentence 2.
The guilty always condemn, and having done so, they will still condemn, linking the future to the past as is the ego's laws.
Okay, that's the main law it's talking about here.
That's right. And when you don't do that, that's when the ego really ramps up. Because that's what the ego is having us do. Like, look at the way they behaved.
In the past.
Look at the way you behaved. And now your karma is going to get you, right? Or their karma.
Okay, yes.
And so just preventing us from coming into the present.
Right.
That's the real solution.
And that's where we would see the Christ.
Right. So that's so the ego's laws are strict. Make sure you look at that guilty past in you or somebody else,
Right.
and realize that's going to be your future.
And know that there's going to be some punishment there.
Right.
Okay.
Well, we stay in the present moment. I understand that, but we also make decisions on what we're going to do in the future based on what our past experience is. I mean, just strictly from a human level.
Right.
That's the ego's version. That's what it's trying to get us to see, is that's the typical way that we do things. And he's trying to get us to say, I don't know what the past means. I'm not going to judge what I should do in the future by what I think about the past. In the holy instant, Holy Spirit, you guide me as to what to say or think or do. That's the other side of it.
Well, he's also referencing this idea where the Course is saying, just forget about everything in the past that was unlike love.
Yeah.
Only remember the love.
Right.
Right. That's the way that we do reference the past, because we're looking to what was loving behavior and we're forgetting about all the others. Right.
Mhm.
So in other words, I can look at somebody and go, they did X, Y, Z, all those bad things. But the Course is saying, find some light in them to see, and don't focus on their guilty past.
Right. Because
that's how we're going to feel. Ultimately, we're doing that to ourselves.
right.
Well,
There's another version that I've seen where look at what they're doing and I created it. It's like double guilt. I'm guilty, they're guilty, or it's
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Either way, it's about the next sentence says, therefore give no obedience to its laws, for they are the laws of punishment. So that looking at the past to decide the future, if we're looking at what was bad and harmful, evil in the past, and deciding the future based on that, that's following the ego's laws.
Yeah, let's read the whole chapter, because it does give us a choice there of how we're going to look at time and what we're going to do.
okay. Let's see, you just read 5, 6. And those who follow them believe they are guilty, and so they must condemn. Between the future and the past, the laws of God must intervene if you would free yourself. Atonement stands between them like a lamp shining so brightly that the chain of darkness in which you bound yourself will disappear. Well, the first word in sentence 8, atonement, is forgiveness, is what stands out to me of that last few sentences, which is basically just what you were saying.
Yeah.
Forgiveness of ourselves and our belief in separation, forgiveness of them. I find it easy I don't hate anybody about anything ever. And there are some reasons maybe to, but I still am cautious about what I do with those people. I mean, they may disappear from my life. I can extend them love and know who they are, even though they don't. But there is a separation from them, because I don't want to be in that way of thought.
Right.
And maybe that's exactly what this is saying.
I think so. I think that would be one way to take that.
Yeah, you become willing to separate your system from the ideas of sin and guilt and how horrible and awful, and you want to resonate with true thoughts,
Right.
which is your innocence. You're forgiven.
And people who also want that thought system, So being around people who are, let's just use a wide term, negative. If you're not called to be there, don't be there. It's like you don't have to hold on to these relationships that are where they trigger you. I mean, it is useful to really do your inner work. But if things don't budge and you're wasting your energy.
Yeah, I mean, that's the don't cast seeds upon barren ground. So we do need discrimination. Is this what I'm going to value? Is to reinforce sin, to reinforce punishment? Is that what I'm going to value? and then come from fear of that future? Or am I going to be present
Mhm.
and feel safe and
And-
feel the atonement? Right.
And
I
when you
will
do
say-
that,
Go
I
ahead.
will say that as we talk this through, that when I've separated from people because of these reasons, that in some way has created some guilt in me that I didn't do as much as I should for them, or there's something wrong with me, and why can't I get over this?
Mhm.
So that whole act of separating from people when you know you should
Mhm.
still creates some kind of guilt.
Do you remember how we read, I don't remember where it was, but I know this group has already passed that part of in the text where it says there's a strong tendency among the separated, you know, those of us who still think with ego every day, strong tendency that when we withdraw our projections, we harbor them within. When we stop blaming other people, the ego really wants to get us.
Yeah, we can stop them. We can stop, doing that to them. But if we're still attracted to the guilt,
Yeah,
which is what the ego wants us to do, is be attracted to the guilt,
yeah,
because that's what the ego lives on.
yeah,
The ego itself is guilt of separation from love.
yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we're only still on the first paragraph, I think. Did you finish it?
Yeah, he read the whole
Oh, yeah,
thing.
you did. Okay.
So it's got that vigil. Atonement stands between them like a lamp. There's this vigil, the idea of holding up the light to see what's truly inside.
And you know what else we noticed when we were reading it together is if you would free yourself, you have to do it yourself.
Yeah.
You have to make the decision.
That's it.
If you would free yourself.
That's why in this last section in the workbook on sin, it says, how long are you going to play this game of making yourself and others guilty?
Yeah.
How long?
Nah, no more. We're
No
done.
mas. No mas.
Connie, would you read 2, please?
Sure. Release from guilt is the ego's whole undoing. Make no one fearful, for his guilt is yours. And by obeying the ego's harsh commandments, you bring its condemnation on yourself, and you will not escape the punishment it offers those who obey it. The ego rewards fidelity to it with pain, for faith in it is pain. And faith can be rewarded only in terms of the belief in which the faith was placed. Faith makes the power of belief, and where it is invested determines its reward. For faith is always given what is treasured, and what is treasured is returned to you. So you have faith in our oneness and in God, and you'll have peace. And if you have faith in the ego, you're going to keep suffering.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
It's amazing that people don't realize
That we don't realize.
that we don't. We're onto it.
Well,
We're
yeah.
onto it. We know
We're onto the
that
game.
when we're in pain, emotional pain,
Yeah.
we're doing it to ourselves.
Right.
We're
But-
trying to say it's because of the economy. It's because of my mother-in-law. None of that. I'm choosing it. I'm trying to blame somebody else, but I get the full reward. What a reward. Thanks a lot, Mr. Ego. Ms. Ego.
So we've been putting together furniture for the whole over 20 years we've known each other. And there's been a little dispute once in a while on how to approach that. But see, that's what we do. We look ahead to relationships or situations. I know what that's going to be like.
Mhm.
That's going to be those people are really difficult. That situation is really,
Yeah, right.
and we're projecting
It's right.
this past into the future.
Exactly. It's like pulling an idea out of the past. The past does not exist. The only place it is in my circuits here, the program, the story that I want to tell.
Right.
The only place the past is. So if I reference the past about what's going to happen in the future, This is saying I'm not letting there be a space for the miracle to intervene.
So he's saying this guilt, this attraction to guilt, your belief in punishment, a future that's fearful and full of pain, that's only there because you have faith that that's what is true.
We believe in the ego's laws.
Right, your faith in
Mhm.
it then creates belief in it.
Yep.
And that's what makes it strong. So it's like, I'm going to withdraw the faith I'm giving to guilt
Hmm.
and to the fear of punishment. I'm going to withdraw that
Yeah.
and come inside
And give it to the Holy Spirit.
so that I can have faith in forgiveness,
Yep.
in innocence in the Holy Spirit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a sentence to a definition of projection. Make no one
Kind of,
fearful,
yeah,
for his guilt
kind
is
of,
yours.
yeah.
By obeying,
It's certainly related, you know.
I have a,
one way of looking at it.
Mhm.
yeah, I have a
Absolutely.
situation right now that I'm not suffering about, and I have people telling me that I should be suffering about it. It's wrong, da 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 da, and I'm like, no, that's not how I see it,
Yeah, right.
You should be
Really.
more upset.
Yeah,
Yeah,
how
yeah.
other egos, how
What's wrong
other
with you?
egos, yeah, right, how other egos want to project pain onto me, it's like,
You should be following the ego's laws.
right, right.
And suffer like the rest of us.
Yes. And
Okay.
the ego's laws are strict and
Yep.
breaches are severely
Severely
punished.
Punished.
Laura, would you read 3, please?
My mute button is right under some other tab and it keeps pressing the wrong tab. Sorry. Okay. The world can give you only what you gave it, for nothing but your own projection. It has no meaning apart from what you found in it and placed your faith in. Be faithful unto darkness, and you will not see, because your faith will be rewarded as you gave it. You will accept your treasure, and if you place your faith in the past, the future will be like it. Whatever you hold dear, you think is yours. The power of your valuing will make it so. So it kind of just reiterates this, like wherever you put your faith is what you're going to experience in perception.
Yeah.
And it's even calling it your treasure. And 3, you will accept your treasure. And if you place your faith in the past, the future will be like it. And I'm assuming that means, painful, fearful, whatever. But 4, whatever you hold dear, you think is yours. 5, the power of your valuing will make it so. So is that, I'm trying to think of how we've talked about that before. Well, whatever you value, you'll believe. Is that around the same thing? So like, I don't know if I have a moral belief about, well, you're a sinner because, you were born with original sin. So I believe that. I mean, that's a silly example, but is that kind of?
So let's talk about what the Course is saying. What's the cognitive train? How does that appear to me? What's fundamental? So what I value is where everything starts. I will not value the values. And what I value, that's my treasure. But what I value, I will have faith in, and my faith will give me belief in it. And the belief in it will give me the seeming experience of it. And then that reinforces the value. So when we cut off it at the value level, I'm not going to value sin and punishment.
Mhm.
Then we can have faith and belief
Mhm.
in forgiveness in the
Mhm.
holy instant, rather than being fearful of punishment in the future.
Right.
Right? What do I value? What's my treasure? Do I want innocence or do I want guilt?
I had an experience recently where after this, we had 1 week in a course. There was something that I needed in my life, and I had a perception that it wasn't going to happen. So I thought, okay, I'm going to use this principles and I'm going to look at it differently. And I cut a long story short, within a month it showed up.
Well,
That can be coincidence. I don't believe that it
Yeah.
was. And it
Oh,
was, it just kind of took me back. And it was much better than I had ever expected it to be. And it was easy.
yeah.
I've really been thinking about that a lot, about all the things I do, my perceptions, and how I cloud the ability for things to manifest of any nature by my perception.
Really good insight. I mean, when we experience it, then we really know it. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I have that experience where I seem to be in conflict with somebody. There's something about them that continually is bugging me about it. But when I let that go and forgive, it does change.
Yeah.
I mean, it does change. If I'm not hanging on to that, this is the way it is, this is the way they are.
So yeah, well, don't forget, this whole world, there's no world outside my mind. You know, that's one of the course's lessons. What? That's really kind of snaps you back into reality.
Yeah. And I
In
like,
my mind, is it a whole bunch of bodies in conflict, or is in my mind God and his son, God and his light?
I really like what Kathy said about projection in paragraph 1, sentence 2. Make no one fearful, for his guilt is yours, and by obeying the ego's harsh commandments, you will bring condemnation on yourself, and you will not escape the punishment it offers to who obeys it. I mean, that is what we're projecting out, is this guilt on somebody else.
Yes, that's what it is. So I think we are at Laura with 3.
No,
No,
she just
she
read
just read
3.
that. Kathy, would you read 4, please?
Sure. Atonement brings reevaluation of everything you cherish, for it is a means by which the Holy Spirit can separate the false and the true, which you have accepted into your mind without distinction. Okay, so we just, therefore, you cannot value one without the other. And guilt has become as true for you as innocence. Boy, isn't that the truth?
Mm-hmm.
You do not believe the Son of God is guiltless because you see the past and see him not.
Mm-hmm.
When you condemn a brother, you are saying, I who was guilty chose to remain so. When you condemn a brother, you are saying, I who was guilty choose to remain so. You have denied his freedom, and by doing you have denied the witness unto yours. You could as easily have freed him from the past and lifted from his mind the cloud of guilt that binds him to it, and in his freedom would you have been your own. Would have been your own. Okay, so I'm thinking about somebody I've had a problem with for years and years and years, and as soon as I don't bind him with guilt to hit the problem, it's like you guys were saying, it just kind of like floats away. It's either a miracle happens or I just don't care anymore, right?
Yeah.
I think that's it, for sure.
And maybe the fact that you don't care anymore, or you don't cause yourself pain anymore, is the miracle.
I think, yeah,
That's the real miracle. And
Well,
then the person may
yeah.
change or not, but your peace is not affected by it.
So look at that in 4. When you condemn a brother, you're saying, I'm making myself guilty,
Yeah,
right?
because I'm enforcing the rules of guilt.
Right.
Yeah.
That's just breaking the oneness with others right there. Making that
Yeah,
guilt.
but the thing is, until we begin to recognize this, people don't. I mean, we've noticed a lot of times when people come into the course like brand new, they really don't see that they're doing it to themselves. They do not realize that they're making like a grid, a filter that they use to look at life that's causing them pain, because they're not looking at their own pain. They're only looking at that thing out there, that story, that version of the world that they see. That's all they see. And they're not seeing how their vision is narrowed and their heart's closed. They don't see the connection between that out there and their own state of mind. It's like the Course is asking people to completely shift. So I'm talking about people who really have not started on the spiritual path, but they're ready to learn because they're often sick and tired.
So when I'm having a bunch of mean thoughts, I'm going to find mean personalities out there that reflect my mean thoughts, right?
Yeah, for sure. Isn't that the case? Yeah, no matter how sweet you try to behave, you know.
So he's talking about what we value, what we trust, or what we treasure, all of that. And I think one of the ways that we can like take our focus away from the guilt is to say, we look at behaviors, right?
Yeah,
And we say these behaviors, and that from a behavioral standpoint, from a body standpoint, those behaviors are not good things. But what we don't see is that we're imposing guilt
right,
on that behavior.
right.
And therefore, it's not changing anything,
Yeah,
right? Because we just focus on the behavior. We
Right.
focus on what they did or what they said to us. And then we miss
mhm,
that we're also putting guilt on them
right,
when we look at that.
Right.
And that's where our choice comes in.
Mm.
I can see those bad behaviors. I don't have to make myself or them guilty for it.
I don't have to feel bad at all.
Because my mind has this ability to treasure what's really valuable,
Right.
which is my innocence, my peace.
Yeah, and for me, it's like when I get caught up like that,
Yeah.
I have to ask for help.
Yeah.
I know that it's my decision, but it really helps to say, Holy Spirit, I need some help here. Be with me. And it works immediately.
I mean, that's the first step of the 12-step program. It's what William James called the cry in the wilderness. That has to happen. You have to realize what I'm doing is messed up. I'm stuck in it and I need help with it.
You know what? It doesn't
Mhm.
have to be that big one amazing enlightenment moment. It can be like every time you get caught in emotional upset, or even like depression doesn't look critical, right? It looks chronic. Either way.
Yeah.
Okay,
Uh,
let's
What,
go ahead.
I have two situations that I've done this work to things that appear to be conflict. And I guess my expectations, I've done my work and extended them love, but I see no change in their behavior.
Yeah,
And I know the answer, but I'm sure everybody else, I want them to change. There's still
Right.
something I want, and they just don't.
right.
And I'd like just a little bit of input on it. How do I handle that? I mean, I know, but I'd like to hear somebody say, how do you handle that?
well, I have a situation that the first sentence, I just look, atonement brings a reevaluation of everything you cherish.
Right.
And that phrase, I read it and I was like, oh my gosh. Yesterday, I happened to look on my phone and I saw all these pictures and I said, oh my God, I've lost 4 people in the last 5 years that were part of my inner circle, conversations, family. And then I was looking at change or loss. So it's how I look at what it is. And what I realized was I was clinging to the belief that everything should stay the same. We're born in a family, it should stay the same. This is the way it should be. And that's crazy because it's only going to cause me pain because everything changes every minute. The cells in my body are changing. The world is changing. It's like, so if I hold on to a belief of how things should be,
Right.
I'm only going to suffer.
I think that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
think
So I
that's-
think in wanting someone else to do something a certain way, that causes suffering.
Right.
Mhm.
That's the meaning of unconditional love. And it's not really love unless it has no rules or conditions. And that goes for yourself. That actually goes for yourself. That means
Right.
you can feel angry and still be unconditionally loved. You're not loving yourself at that moment, but
You
you're
know,
unconditionally loved.
This is what I personally, for me, this is what I have to do with my son because he's so lost right now. And it's very likely that he could end up destroying himself. And what I have to do in that situation is accept that my issue here is my own guilt
Right.
and that I'm seeing him in a certain kind of way. And I want his behaviors to change or his personality to change. But what I need to change is my attraction to guilt
Yeah,
because that's what the pain is.
that's it.
My reaction to what's going on is what I have complete control over. That I can see. I mean, that's what the mind training
Yeah,
is you can free yourself.
right.
You can see, am I thinking in past terms? Am I trying to make that my future? Right.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I can see, I don't want that. Let me come into where the Holy Spirit is and
Yeah.
have him separate the true and the false.
Right,
Right.
right. And just sit in the middle in peace.
What do I want? Is this how?
What
Go ahead.
what Dale said earlier about not wanting to interrupt the line of thinking that they've got, I mean, that's really loving, you know? I mean, that's a beautiful way of holding it for me,
Yeah.
you know? Because I have a tendency to, if I disapprove of what somebody says or is doing and I don't do anything to stop it, which is most of the time, I feel guilty.
Oh,
Right. Right on.
Like
Yeah,
I'm
well,
the
that-
master of the universe or something, you know?
well, that, so what it's saying is it's just like there's a whole pot of guilt here,
Yeah,
right?
let's just
And
dish it
if
out.
if you don't just like dump it and come from what's underneath it, the real thing, there's just all this guilt that's just being recycled. So it's like we blame somebody else and we feel guilty for blaming them. No, we felt guilty from the beginning. So it's like a cycle. I automatically feel guilty because I've left God. I know I'm more than this, but I don't want to be it. I'd rather be a body.
Let's,
So it cycles.
let me ask a question here. So 4:6, the sentence 6, you could have easily freed him from the past and lifted from his mind the cloud of guilt that binds him to it. And then in his freedom would have been my own. So what I would say is an exercise with that is to take a situation, where you're having difficulty with somebody, some situation,
Yeah.
and say, I can free not
My
only
brother.
myself, but them from this guilt,
From the past. We
From the-
free them from the past.
right?
Yeah.
And whether they may not become aware of it, but I can trust that the Holy Spirit has healed me from
Right.
this attraction to guilt.
Right.
And I can trust that somewhere in their mind, the Holy Spirit gave them what the Holy Spirit gave me.
Just to amplify this, anybody who's interested might want to go to the questions about healing in the manual for teachers. Because what we're really trying to do is get other people to behave in ways that we consider healthy, right? We want them to be kind and loving, and they don't appear to be. So that's just another way of saying we want them to be healed. And I think there's 3 questions about healing that are really could be valuable amplifications of this.
I've got a
Go ahead.
situation similar to Dale's where I've got a conflict with someone at work. I'm on a project with her. I've been trying to kind of, directly reach out and even like without saying all this kind of stuff, just like, hey, like, let's let the misunderstandings of the past go. Let's work together. And I've done some of the work and like trying to extend her before, and she will not even meet with me.
Yeah.
And I can't get my job done. So
Oh.
it's like in this case, right? I'm like, honestly, do I really care if we have a good, it's not like, oh, this is my spouse or my son or my sister. I don't really care if we have a good relationship. I just want the conflict to resolve so that we can work, we can almost meet in love because we have the same goal. We're on the same project. But like Dale is saying, I'm not seeing a change and I don't know what else to do.
Well, you only have to work on yourself. So letting go of how her behavior is, that's got to be essential. And what you do on the practical level, I don't know.
Right, but she's not, well, and from a more, and this is a more practical thing, right? Like she's holding up my project because she's not doing her things. And it's an interesting one because it's like, I kind of feel like, well, maybe it's because I'm not really coming from love. Like I don't feel love for her. Like, so I'm like, well, it must be, I'm doing it wrong. Or, like maybe, but I'm like, do I really need to feel that kind of love towards someone to have that miracle, right? I mean, Bill and Helen didn't, right? They didn't love each other when they both came together and said, there must be a better way.
Right. But remember that the goal is peace.
Right.
Love comes, you don't generate the love. You choose peace for yourself. From there, all the answers will come. Who should you talk to about this? What should you do about it? On that level, the answers will come from peace and the holy instant rather than the past and your upsets. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well, but that's where the difficulty comes in, is that I think that when I'm thinking of my son or anything I have conflict, I'm focusing on the circumstances or the situations or the personalities, either of him or me. But if I don't have peace, if I don't have my sense of innocence in that moment, I can recognize the problem isn't the circumstances or the situation. The problem is the guilt I feel. Because, for instance, like if I'm working with somebody and we have the same goals and they're not going to go along and do it, what am I saying? I can't get my job done. This can't happen. All this stuff. I don't see that I'm projecting a future of pain for myself,
right?
Because I focus on the situation instead of my reaction to it. Because that's what I have control over is my reaction to any situation.
Yeah.
And we're training ourselves to see that.
Right. Laura turned into a flower. It's a miracle.
I did. I let my dog get out of the room before she started to bark. Yeah. So yeah. Okay.
So best we can do is
similar.
Excuse me?
I said no. It was just similar to what Dale was asking, that I'm not seeing, and again, different than I've had other areas of my life where it's more like I'm more concerned about the relationship with the person and seeing them in that way. And this is I'm trying to make this a different situation, I guess. I don't know.
And there's no love but God's. There are no different kinds of love. Remember that lesson? Yeah. Okay. Well, let's go on.
It's but I mean, I think this is our working edge right here.
It is
to see guilt as the problem.
That's it. Yeah.
And we don't see that in ourselves.
And you could call it, listen, you could also call it fear or disappointment or sadness. It'll show up in those other forms. They're all guilt.
So look again at 2:2, what Kathy, make no one fearful, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing that we've got. Like, remember Karen was saying, how could I raise my kids unless I scared them? Like we make people fearful, and that's how we think that we're controlling them. And that's what we can stop doing.
Right.
We can see that I'm trying to value fear instead of love.
Right.
And that fear is producing guilt.
It is.
It leads to that.
So, Dale, could you read 5, please?
Yes. By the way, what a wise bunch of people. I mean,
Aren't we lucky?
Yeah. I mean, I listened to everybody's comments, go, wow, that really helped me. Because it's good to know that we're all experiencing the same situation in our lives. And it's just really fascinating and really loving to listen to everybody talk about it. So,
yeah.
I think that's what's so amazing, because everybody has the same problems. Maybe a little bit different flavor here and there, but basically our stuff is all the same,
Right. This is a thing that I like a lot about Ken Wapnick. I don't think the way that he does in a lot of ways about the Course, but what he's constantly saying is don't underrate the task that stands before us.
Yeah.
Right. Don't, this is a big deal to undo guilt.
Right.
We're undoing a whole future that we don't have to experience
Right.
when we do that.
Yeah.
And don't
It's huge.
underrate how difficult it can be.
We have to do it. Yeah.
Okay, 5.
Yep.
Lay not his guilt upon him, for his guilt lies in his secret thought that he has done this unto you. Would you then teach him he is right in his delusion? The idea that the guiltless Son of God can attack himself and make himself guilty is insane. In any form, in anyone, believe this not. For sin and condemnation are the same, and the belief in one faith in the other, calling for punishment instead of love. Nothing can justify insanity, and to call for punishment upon yourself must be insane. Well, that just goes back to the previous discussion, I think, that we had about extending love to people, and I'm still struggling with this, and I think I've heard some other people are too. I think this paragraph speaks to it. When there's something that you need to have happen, and you're extending love to that person, and you've forgiven yourself and them, but the circumstances continue to pound you, I haven't honestly come to a resolution, particularly when it's affecting daily what's going on in your life. I understand what they're saying in this paragraph, but I still don't have that answer. How do I just walk away from things that are occurring to me every day? I mean, I guess I can forgive over and over and over, but it still affects the day-to-day things that are going on.
Well, your question was, how do I walk away? And have you even looked at that? How do you? Just a rhetorical question for later.
Well, it was a good one, and you hit me where I live with it. So maybe I haven't. Maybe I haven't. I guess I haven't. I thought I had, but I guess I haven't. This is really bringing up a lot of emotion in me because it's so personal. So I'll keep working on it.
But
Yeah, you're a blessed guy.
Yeah. Let me
I'm sorry.
point out here something, because this has been a big topic lately in classes. So the world can agree that forgiveness is the answer. Like to understand that I should forgive this person, I should overlook this, I should, entitle them to salvation that I want. So the ego can believe in that kind of forgiveness. But the forgiveness we do in the Course is to lead us towards vision. Because the Course is saying within you is this true Christ self. And this true Christ self has ears and eyes, hands and feet. And that true Christ is what's doing things through you. That's what's really going, that's what's seeing, that's what's hearing.
Within yourself.
Within yourself is that. And so when I forgive, vision has to be the next step. I can hear more clearly the Holy Spirit. And the Holy Spirit will say, well, don't focus there, put your focus over here. Don't, maybe it's not going to work out with that person, so focus somewhere else. That's where the discernment and the discrimination comes from forgiveness. I develop these ears and these eyes of my true self, the Christ.
I know that's true, but in practical sense, all we have to do is say, help me, Holy Spirit, or help me, Jesus, help me to see right now, not from the past.
Well, right, but what I'm saying is, when I do that with the Holy Spirit, I can think my problem is because I'm lazy. And I'm saying that's what's true about me, is I'm lazy.
If you were thinking with the Holy Spirit, you wouldn't say that.
That's right. That's why I need the Holy Spirit to show me what are my issues of healing with guilt here.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
You just said something that's very important. I don't know why I haven't done it. I haven't asked for Holy Spirit to help me on these, to guide me with these things. I thought I'd done my work, and there's still something in there that me was angry, obviously. But I have, that's the part I've eliminated. So that was very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing it up. You help everybody.
So forgiveness is not behavioral management. I mean, forgiveness is for ourselves, right?
Yeah.
That's a really good line. You could put that, social media would love that line.
I mean,
Forgiveness is not
And-
behavioral management.
And forgiveness does not preclude taking care of oneself.
Right,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely.
that last line is very evocative. You're punishing yourself, and that's insane.
Right.
Okay.
So I think it is whose turn? Connie's? On 6?
I believe so. See no one then as guilty, and you will affirm the truth of guiltlessness unto yourself. In every condemnation that you offer the Son of God lies the conviction of your own guilt. If you would have the Holy Spirit make you free of it, accept his offer of atonement for all your brothers, for so you learn that it is true for you. Remember always that it is impossible to condemn the Son of God in part. Those whom you see as guilty become the witnesses to guilt in you, and you will see it there, for it is there until it is undone. Guilt is always in your mind, which has condemned itself. Project it not, for while you do, it cannot be undone. With everyone whom you release from guilt, great is the joy in heaven, where the witnesses to your fatherhood rejoice. So that's the whole, that we're all one and not separate. And if I project my guilt onto anyone else, then I'm really expressing my own guilt and making us all guilty, which is impossible because we're not guilty.
Exactly.
We're all perfect in the eyes of the Father. So,
So
but
it was either you or Timothy this morning was talking about the nightmare. Oh yeah, it was you, Connie. The happy dream
oh,
versus
right.
the nightmare. And it's like, it is a world of nightmare if we're seeing other people and the world as guilty and threatening and evil and wrong and bad. It's putting us in that hell, in that nightmare.
I mean, that last sentence is showing, and he talked about this in the section before. When I forgive here, when I release from guilt here, it's literally saying there's a joy in reality, a joy in heaven when I do that.
Yeah.
I'm reflecting my true nature when I relieve others of guilt here and myself. And there's joy in myself in that, in the
Yeah.
reality. So we're not, I mean, that when we can love here, even in the most mundane of things, we're showing that there's no separation from love. We're proving to ourselves,
Right.
I'm a loving being. I'm lovable.
Right.
I'm loving. Others are lovable and they're loving.
Right.
We prove that to ourselves because we see guilt is the block here.
Right.
Guilt is the interference. It's what's confusing me. I think I can't think clearly because I'm obsessed with this guilt.
Right.
And it's making me think my future is going to be like my past, which was sinful.
Right. It's either a guilty world or a loving world. That's it. But we go back and forth all the time. Okay, let's see who read that. Who read that, Connie?
I did.
And Laura, would you read 7, please?
Guilt makes you blind, for while you see one spot of guilt within you, you will not see the light. And by projecting it, the world seems dark and shrouded in your guilt. You throw a dark veil over it and cannot see it because you cannot look within. You are afraid of what you would see there, but it is not there. The things you fear is gone. The thing you fear is gone. If you would look within your world, see only the atonement, shining in quiet and in peace upon the altar to your Father.
Okay,
So
it's
sorry, go ahead.
that 6th line is, if you would look within, you would see only the atonement.
Right, okay.
Yeah, okay.
So it's saying that you can't see any light if there's one spot of guilt, that makes it sound like we would never see light.
Well,
Well,
I don't know what to say
remember,
about that.
remember that the Course's use of time is
Yeah.
that the instant we
Mm.
thought of separating at that very, because really there is no time.
Yeah.
And so it's an abstraction that we left love and that we changed reality. That's an abstraction. And in that very moment, the Holy Spirit healed that separation thought and all of its many forms. So I can come into any situation and realize there has to be a miracle here to help me change how I'm thinking about the situation.
Mhm,
Because the Holy Spirit has already done
mhm.
his function, which is to save us, which is to forgive us. And I'm just becoming aware of what's there. The thing you fear is gone. Guilt has been removed.
Mm.
And you can go, what do you mean? I feel fear. I feel guilt. And you go, well, do you feel it now? What do you feel now? I mean, it's just coming into the present and realizing there's a possibility if I have faith and belief
Yeah.
in the atonement and the Holy Spirit, there's a possibility that I can come back to peace and
Right.
not feel guilty.
And just by making that choice,
Yeah.
you do.
Right.
Yeah, but and all of that was awesome. And Laura was asking, if you see one spot of guilt within you, you will not see the light. Oh, I guess what your answer to that is.
Well,
I'm gonna try to paraphrase you.
well, fine.
If I'm in the holy instant,
Yeah.
there's no spot of guilt in me.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Because
And if I'm in the past or worried about the future, I'm in the guilt world.
I'm avoiding the present. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what he's saying the ego is constantly doing.
Mhm.
Avoid the present, because if you get real about yourself, you're going to see this awfulness. So avoid the present. That's
Right.
what the ego doesn't want us to do, is
Right.
come into the present
Right.
and see the possibility. I can change my entire experience
Yay.
and not fear punishment and not feel pain.
And we can do this for other people by seeing the Christ in them.
We set the example.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we had an example Tuesday. Laura and I met with John, and he talked about all the stuff that was going on with his son and all the problems. And he took full responsibility, he said, for my experience with my son.
Mhm.
And he really did clean it up in himself. And so as it happened, his son came to visit him and he paid him back money. So things on this level do straighten out. They may not straighten out in the way we think they
Maybe
should,
not the way we think they should.
but the
Yeah.
circumstances, the situations, the way our relationships go, that should be changing. That can change.
From love
Yeah.
only, not from the rules.
Not from the rules.
Yeah.
Right. Because I've cleaned up the guilt here, I
Right.
no longer see a world of punishment.
Yeah. Okay, so does that mean it's Kathy's turn?
So maybe when you see one spot of guilt, it gives you a chance to see what the guilt is. Because I don't know about you guys, but when you've been working on this stuff for a while, it's like the guilt shows up and you don't know where the hell it came from.
That's it.
You know, why am I feeling this again? You know, I mean, it's,
Well, don't forget, he tells
yeah,
us
Holy Spirit. Yeah.
it comes from a belief we left God, and that is so unconscious. So it's like it's really good to look at your grievances when you can identify them.
Yeah.
When that big blob of a thundercloud comes up, you can just say, hey, that's not true. I'm not that.
I go back to this idea that the Holy Spirit not only gives me the answers, but the Holy Spirit sets the question.
Mm.
So I've seen this many times before. When I feel like I'm guilty, I go, well, it's because you're lazy. You're just not doing enough. If you would do more, you wouldn't feel guilty. And then I really look at the situation and I say, that's nuts. I'm doing everything I can. It's not about me being lazy. So I'm hiding what's the real source of guilt.
Right.
I'm saying, oh, it's because I'm lazy. That's why the Holy Spirit has to say, here's your job with forgiveness. This is what this is about within you.
Yeah.
And you're not seeing that.
Yeah.
And I can help you see
Right.
what really is the issue in your forgiveness and bring you to peace.
And this last paragraph is the hope that all of this discussion brings forth.
Do not be afraid to look within. The ego tells you all is black with guilt within you and bids you not to look. Instead, it bids you look upon your brothers and see the guilt in them. Yet this you cannot do without remaining blind. For those who see their brothers in the dark and guilty in the dark in which they shroud them are too afraid to look upon the light within. Within you is not what you believe is there, and what you put your faith in. Okay, within you is not what you believe is there, and what you put your faith in. Within you is a holy sign of perfect faith your Father has in you. He does not value you as you do. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
He knows himself and knows the truth in you. He knows there is no difference, for he knows not of difference. Can you see guilt where God knows there is perfect innocence? Can you deny his knowledge, but you can deny his knowledge, but you cannot change it. Look then upon the light he placed within you and learn that what you feared was there has been replaced with love. That's beautiful. Can you see guilt where God knows there is perfect innocence? Well, I try.
We try.
I try.
But see, that's the continuing effort of the ego to replace God.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Forget about what God's saying. I mean, we're the ones who are the champion here.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. He's not here.
He's not-
Right.
Yeah.
We've made God disappear.
Oh man, it's been a really good session.
Yeah.
So I hope you all are able to find that innocence and light within today, right now.
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah, this theme over and over and over again, he comes out with the
Yeah.
course that it's the love within you that you're really afraid of, and you
Yeah.
can't see that.
Yeah. Yeah.